Hey there, Tyler from Less Annoying CRM here. In this video, I'm going to talk with Lesley Sim, who's the co-founder of Newsletter Glue. I'll let her explain in her own words what her business does in a minute. But first, I just wanted to give a little bit of context about what we're doing here. This is not a classic kind of startup founder interview. We're going to spend a little bit of time on Lesley's background and story, but mostly we're going to dive into actual tactical issues she's facing in her business. We're just going to talk about them and brainstorm a little bit. Now, as you might expect, her issues are more complicated than the type of thing we can get solved in just this, hour-long discussion we have here. So this isn't so much about getting answers as it is just kind of going through the process of what it's like to brainstorm. And then towards the end of it, we also just kind of chat about some random topics that are on our minds. So this is the first time I've ever made a video like this before. Thanks so much to Lesley for participating. I have no idea if this will be interesting to anybody. So please let me know your feedback on if this is a good format, if you want more of this or anything like that. Let's go forward and talk with Lesley. Here we go. All right, Lesley, what's going on?
Hey Tyler. All sorts of things in the business. I think I
Yeah.
probably obsess over work stuff more than I should.
Do you
So,
do you feel like self-conscious about that at all?
uh, yes and no. So like I'm always on the hunt for, like, oh, I'm gonna talk to this random friend and I'll like open with work and like hope that they'll give me that random nugget that's gonna lead to a breakthrough for me. So like I tend to do that and I think like my friends don't necessarily appreciate it because I'm like they'll be like, hey, what's going on? And I'll be like, so this is a work problem that I have. And then they're like stuck brainstorming with
They're
me
like,
for
I
20
don't care at
minutes.
all.
So yeah.
Yeah, this is one reason I like hanging out with coworkers because they're normally happy just talking shop all day. Cool. Well, before we start talking shop, let's learn a little bit about you. So you run Newsletter Glue. You're one of the co-founders, but we're going to get to that in a second. Can you just give me like a quick overview of what led you here? Like, what's your background, your skill set, whatever?
Yeah. So I've done a bunch of different things. I started my career working kind of in a government organization. And then it was like very, very poor fit for me because I'm, not a good government employee. I tend to color outside the lines a lot. Um, and then I went to an ad agency and really, really loved that. That was like, the place where they encourage you to color out the lines. Um, like literal skateboarding through the halls kind of
Oh
stuff,
wow.
which is really fun. Yeah. Um, and then I became a freediving instructor for a while, um, and dabbled in craft beer and came back down to earth and set up a digital marketing agency. And I've been kind of doing that for a few years. Then I got sick of that, um, and was like, okay, the thing I haven't tried is software. And so I kind of dove straight into that. And that happened end of 2019. So I've been learning about software since the pandemic, basically.
Yeah. Well, good timing to get into software, I guess. So, okay, you've done a ton of stuff. The free diving and the craft beer in particular seems like a kind of unique part of the story. But this isn't fully on an interview, so I won't dive too deep into that. But I'm curious. So, based on the marketing agency thing, is like marketing kind of your main skill set? That's like the what you're bringing to the table. Okay, cool. So great, and then that led you into software, and now you and a co-founder are running Newsletter Glue. So what's the deal with that? What are you doing?
So Newsletter Glue brings newsletter publishing into WordPress. Um, and so what we try to do is turn, existing WordPress features into newsletter features. So like you can, create a new post, write your post and send that out as a newsletter. Um, so basically like, if you know how to blog, you know how to write a newsletter in WordPress using our plugin. That's kind of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We connect to different email service providers. So I think right now we connect to 8 or 9 email service providers. So that means you don't have to migrate. So like a lot of people already, have a Mailchimp account or have a MailerLite account, and they don't really ever use it. They might have been like sending, like collecting subscribers for years and just kind of like, I'll get around to it one day. And what we hope to do is uh, if you're already blogging, because like a lot of people already blog because they know they have to do the content marketing, and it's like just that extra step of toggling on the send as newsletter button, and that just sends your blog post out to your subscribers as well. um, yeah, so like a lot of our customers say that we're the reason they've started writing newsletters again, or like we're the reason, we're the
Yeah.
only way they've managed to become consistent with newsletters. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, that's cool because WordPress has such a huge ecosystem. I guess there are a lot of people using WordPress well, but that aren't using email marketing well. I'm probably one of many failed Substack accounts out there where I wrote like 3 posts, but it was very cool in Substack. You write a blog post, you publish it to your website and hit send at the same time. So you're basically turning WordPress into Substack. Is that
Yeah.
too much of a simplification or about right?
No, that's like a good way to put it.
Okay, cool. Great. So anybody who wants to learn more, just go to, I assume, newsletterglue.com. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Great. But we're just going to skip past. I mean, we've got the basic background there. I really like just kind of workshopping business problems and stuff like that. So we'll see how long this lasts. I think we can go down whatever rabbit holes we want to, kind of go off on tangents. But let's just dive in here. Before we started talking tonight, we were DMing on Twitter, and you sent me a few topics, and then tonight or for me it's nighttime, I guess. Is it morning over there?
It's 10 a.m.
10 a.m. All right, nice. So you kind of said you think all 3 of the problems boil down to basically a positioning problem. Can you talk about what led you to this, and let's just talk about the positioning of your business.
Yeah. So this isn't gonna, we talked about this as well, right? So like this isn't going to be a coherent case study, like a Harvard Business School case study where like all the facts are laid out straight and it's easy to understand what's going on. So this is going to, like, me talking about it is going to be like, I don't know, like a bramble bush or like, like poison ivy or something. And it's like going to be hard to tell, where's up and where's down. So yeah, so see, I'm even having trouble like figuring out where to start. So I think like the good things about our business is that people seem to really like us once they start using us. And our customers tend to be very vocal about us and like about encouraging other people to use us and things like that. So like that's been really cool. But the flip side is it's been really hard to get new customers. So like there's this like I have to be like kind of exposed, or like newsletter glue has to a person has to be exposed to newsletter glue multiple times before they decide to give it a go, and that's just really hard. So like maybe they've like seen me on Twitter, they've read a couple of blog posts, and then they decide one day to tune into a live stream. So I've been trying to do live streams with people, like plugin demos, and then like they finally watch the live stream and they're like, oh, now I get it. And then they become a customer. So like that's really common for us. And so I've read Obviously Awesome by April Dunford, and that's an excellent book. But I read it like 3 years ago, maybe. And so I have like this like idea that of what positioning is and how important it is, and like how nebulous it can be as well. And so like in trying to diagnose my problems, I didn't kind of land on positioning as the problem to begin with. At first I was like, okay, maybe the problem is that we don't have enough people coming to our website, right? So it's just a matter of quantity. And so I decided, okay, let's aim to get 10K monthly visitors to our website by the end of the year. And from there, we'll have the quantity to see, to make decisions, to see if indeed quantity was the problem, or like everyone comes to our homepage and then just drops off immediately. And then that means that, we have like a homepage conversion problem and so on. So I felt like we'd be able to diagnose the problems better if we had more people coming in. So like that's kind of where I started. then at the same time I was like, okay, I'm also gonna redo the website. And then in doing that, I one of the great things that I did was we have like testimonials from all over the place. Like people email us and say that they love us. I have like stuff on Twitter, stuff on Facebook, all over the place. So I kind of consolidated all of the testimonials and like put them into buckets depending on what thing they said they liked about us. And that made me realize that like I'd been talking about the thing wrong as well, because the things that I was saying about the plugin wasn't necessarily the things that people were saying about the plugin. So that was like, sorry.
Yeah, I want to learn more about this, because this is one of my favorite tricks, is like ask your happy customers what's going on, what they like about it, and then just copy their words. So like what were, okay, you gave a description at the beginning of this of what newsletter glue is. Is that how your customers would say it?
No.
what would they what would they say, do you think?
So they talk about workflow a lot. Let me just so a lot of our customers say how much time. Okay, wait. So the thing that I did say was consistency. So our customers do say that we're the reason they were able to become consistent writing newsletters. Then the other big thing is workflow. So we actually changed the workflow of people who already have a blog and a newsletter. So, previously they would write a blog, then they hop into MailChimp or whatever they're using and recreate their newsletter in there. So with us, you just do everything in WordPress. And so people say it saves them like easily an hour or 2 hours per newsletter, because they don't have to do that back and forth anymore. So those are the two things that people say a lot.
Consistency and workflow. Okay, that's interesting. And yeah, I feel the pain, because my setup is my site's on Webflow, and then I kind of write a blog post there. And then what I was doing is once a week, I would go kind of summarize that and write a newsletter and ConvertKit and stuff like that. And it was too much work. So I just switched from weekly to monthly because of, how much time it can take. So I feel that pain for sure. Okay. So you're thinking, you read Obviously Awesome by April Dunford. You're fiddling with your website. You're looking at your testimonials and you're saying, okay, the way I'm talking about this is different from the way my customers are talking about this. Is that basically where we're at right now? Or have you kind of like made more progress down that path?
There are a couple more things that like I've kind of figured out. So just like having the talking about the wrong thing, that's like one part of the positioning. Like keep the existing features but talk about them differently, right? So that's like one part of positioning. But then I think I also have like a product positioning problem. So like how do I put it? Like imagine there are 50 different Lego pieces in the world of newsletters that I could possibly take and build and create a product out of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like there are probably, I'm like making this up here, but like let's say there are only like 10 different configurations that could be turned into profitable businesses, right? And then maybe like out of those 10, there are like 3 that could be turned into $1 billion companies, and those are like ESPs, email service providers. And okay, so like maybe I don't want to be an email service provider, so I'm not going to just build a MailChimp clone or any of those guys. And then so I'm left with like 7 of those options, and like out of those 7, you have email builders, for example. You have like people like Litmus who do QA for email, and like a handful of other stuff. And like so right now, I think that I don't fall into any of those 10 options. I think I've like built like a bastardized. Can I say bastardized?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see if YouTube allows it, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think I have to like build into one of those 10 buckets, like 10 identifiable, recognizable product types.
Yeah.
Like a product category. I think I haven't done that yet. So
okay, because that's what I was going to ask. Is like, it kind of feels to me like I'm not aware of anything else like newsletter glue, which you're kind of creating a new market in a sense. Now there are a lot of comps. yeah, you can compare yourself to Substack, which I think is great. Like these days, a lot of people know what that is and like aspects of ConvertKit and stuff. But yeah, like, so if I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. In the early days of Less Annoying CRM, my brother and I, he's the other co-founder, we wrote 5 blog posts a week. I did 3, he did 2. We put out a lot of content. And some of the posts actually got meaningful traffic. Like we got some links from like major blogs and quite a bit of traffic, but none of those people were looking for CRM software, right? They were there to read. Like my brother wrote some post on like how to hack Chrome on Mac OS to do something weird. It just had nothing to do with our business, but we got traffic from it. So I kind of wonder, like, have you qualified your traffic? Like, how are they getting to your website? And then maybe that might inform if it should be concerning that they're not signing up and converting right away.
Right. So okay, wait, can we go back to that in a minute? The last thing that I wanted to say about like
Oh, sure.
my Lego thing is like so I mean all of that to say like it's a category problem. Like if people don't like so for you it's easy, right? Like you have the word CRM in your name.
Yeah.
And for me it should be easy because I have the word newsletter in my name, but like newsletter itself is not really a product category. It's not something people necessarily search for. Or like when they search for us, they expect a bunch of stuff which they don't necessarily get. So I think like we have to build out some of that stuff. So like right now, if they want a Substack substitute, they have to already be on WordPress. They have to already have like a MailChimp or MailerLite or whatever account, and then they can use us. I feel like that's just not that helpful. So yeah, just kind of like figuring out which, how do we give this like more complete package that people can use so that when they search newsletter plugin, they get everything to do with newsletters in that one plugin. I think is what we need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is like a much more difficult thing, which will take months and months. But I think like that's kind of the direction that we have to head towards.
Do you think this is like an existential problem for you, or is it just like this is a way to speed up? Because you've got some customers, they seem happy, you've got traction. Like, if you just stayed on your current course, what do you think you'd plateau, or would it just be a slow but steady climb?
I have no idea. It's hard to say. But I think like it's just really hard if like every single customer that we have on board, like we've had to, they've had to see us multiple times. They've had to come to this aha moment. Like in comparison, like you use SavvyCal, right? Like anyone who's used Calendly before, like it's like it's a substitute. So there isn't that aha moment. Whereas like when Calendly came, into the picture, they probably had the same problem as us. Like they had to spend a lot of time trying to educate people. No, we're not actually a calendar. You can't use us as a replacement for Google Calendar. And like, I think that works if you have, maybe the money or I don't know, even the patience. But
Yeah.
I kind of just want to be a SavvyCal, like just here, we are a substitute. If you don't like them, come to us.
Yeah, like you said, that's
Yeah.
exactly what Less Annoying CRM is. And I think April Dunford actually mentions that in Obviously Awesome. I think there's like 5 different like ways to position yourself. It's been a while since I've read it, but something like that. And one of them is like create a totally new market no one's ever heard of. And she's basically like, A, don't do that. And B, if you're going to do it, you have to raise money. And I don't think it's not a coincidence that Calendly raised a lot of money. And then SavvyCal came along, right?
To begin with. They were bootstrapped.
Oh, were they? How long did they bootstrap?
I'm like not sure, but they got big.
Well,
yeah.
There goes my thesis. Never mind. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying, that you don't want to create a new thing. So have you read the Mom Test, by the way?
I have, yes. Huge
Okay.
fan of that as well.
Because while you were talking, that kind of stood out to me as like, one of the things they say in the Mom Test is you have to ask the person you're interviewing, like, what have you done to find the solution to this? And I kind of like, do you happen to know? So back to my earlier question, this is a little different from my earlier one, but you've got customers. How did they find you? And were they looking for what you offered? Or was it just like they followed you on Twitter and then over time they realized they needed this thing, but they weren't necessarily looking for it?
We have like a small number of people who were looking for it and found us. combination of I need to send out a blog post as a newsletter, so like send blog post as newsletter kind of thing. And some people who look for straight up Substack, like Substack for WordPress. So we do have those people. It hasn't been that many, but then that goes back to what we were talking about, like traffic, right? So like maybe there are like many more of these people, and I just haven't done a good job of reaching them. So it's kind of hard to know, I think, which is why it's like goes back to like what I said about poison ivy and just like this big jumble of mess. Like it's hard to, like you have all these symptoms, like what's the diagnosis? It's probably a combination of all of the things, right?
Yeah. At the beginning of this, you described Newsletter Glue and you didn't use the word Substack in there. Is that like intentional? Do you not want to be compared to Substack? Because to me, that feels like kind of the obvious comparison.
Yeah, I go back and forth. Sometimes I say it and sometimes I don't. But yeah, so like when I don't say it, it's because I'm like, maybe I don't want to be compared to Substack.
Sorry, I'm just doing a little Googling here. Do you know what, I assume, do you consider like Ghost kind of a competitor of yours?
Yeah.
Do you know what the title tag on their website is? It
No, what
is
is it?
the independent Substack alternative with 0% fees.
Oh wow. So they're
Like
just going for it, huh?
yeah, that's not some like random like ad. That is the title tag of their homepage on their website is the independent Substack alternative.
Cool.
That's aggressive.
I'm on the.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
my
guess.
nephew just came in and said good morning.
No worries. That's life working from home, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just like from a positioning standpoint. We're just brainstorming. I'm not. I want to be very clear. Everything I say here, like your business better than me, and ignore everything I'm going to say. But positioning yourself against Substack seems like a pretty good way. I know there are a lot of people out there already. I've seen their Hacker News comments and stuff that are like, they're going to like capture my audience. They're going to start, their fees are too high, all this stuff. It feels like going after them might be like a clear way to position yourself. What do you think about that?
I think it's a good idea. Maybe I should just do it. I've kind of been like half in, half out. So yeah, maybe it's time to commit. I don't know.
Well, what's the concerns? Like, why don't you? Why are you nervous about doing that?
I guess I wonder if it boxes us in, firstly. And secondly, maybe more pertinently, we don't actually have that many customers who cross over. Most of our customers, so there are like a bunch of different things that are typical for our customers. Like they already are very familiar with WordPress, and okay, wait, let me say that again. That might be the main criteria. And so like I've like at the start when we first started the business, I tried to get people to convert from Substack to WordPress, but if they don't already have a WordPress blog, it's like impossible to convince them to like start this whole WordPress thing just for our small plugin.
That makes
Um,
sense.
and yeah, so I think like that's been the biggest hurdle. So like I've kind of stopped trying to do that and just focus on people who already have WordPress sites. So I think like the people who have made the transition like from Substack to WordPress and to using us, they already had a WordPress site. So like they had a Substack and a WordPress, and they were like, "This is ridiculous." And then they like got rid of the Substack part of things. But like because they'd had like that taste of send publishing and then like blogging and newsletter at the same time, they're like, okay, I just want this exact feature, but on WordPress,
That
and
makes sense.
that's where we come in.
Yeah, because before when I was setting up my website, which ended up being in Webflow, I tried WordPress, and it's a tough thing if you've never used it before. And I'm a programmer, I'm fairly technical. It's a tough thing to get into. So okay, and whereas Substack's the exact opposite, right? The like person using Substack had zero setup. They can barely configure anything about it. I buy that it's hard to get someone if they're not already using WordPress. There's too much friction to getting them to sign up. Okay. By the way, one thing I just want to comment on, Less Annoying CRM, we originally called Less Annoying Software. I mean, that's technically we are like incorporated as Less Annoying Software. And we changed it to Less Annoying CRM. The reason we did software is we were like, nobody, our customers are low tech. They don't know what a CRM is. Back in 2009, not everyone knew what a CRM was. And even though that was true, there were a lot of people who didn't know what a CRM was. We couldn't reach them. Like they weren't going online and Googling what, I don't even know what they would have Googled. If you don't know what a CRM is, you're not looking for a CRM. And so we changed our name to Less Annoying CRM, and it definitely helped. I think it's a similar positioning thing to you, is basically like, we were like you are right now. We're targeting people who maybe have a need, but aren't looking for it. So they're maybe not the right people to go after.
Yeah, I think so. And
have you noticed any... Oh. Do you want to say hi?
She's not shy.
I'm curious. Okay. So if we just look at the subset of people, and sorry for just going over stuff you've already thought up.
No, it's good. It helps me clarify my thoughts as well.
Cool. If you just focus on the people who already had WordPress, there's a subset of them who are using Substack. That's great. That's a perfect fit, but it's probably too niche to like really build your positioning around them. Are there any other patterns for the WordPress people in terms of like problems they were having, or any like how did they find you if they weren't looking for a Substack alternative?
Yeah, I think it's just that whole I already spent all day in WordPress. I'm super familiar with it. You know, I have a big blog following or something, and I know that I need to write a newsletter. I just haven't gotten around to it. So I think like that tends to be the thing. Or the other thing is also some of our features. Like sometimes people learn about like some of our blogs. Like we make it really easy to, for example, create like a weekly roundup link drop type of newsletter. So you, it's similar to Review, I think. I don't know exactly how they do it on the back, but the output looks similar. So, you know, for us, you drop a bunch of links. So let's say like the Obviously Awesome book, Ghost, Twitter, you know, you drop in a bunch of links and we output that as, you know, we pull the featured image, we pull the title, we pull the excerpt out. And so you don't have to do any of that. And then you can obviously like style it and make it look the way you want it to. Yeah, so that like, you know, anyone who's been writing these like weekly roundup type of emails, like if you've done it yourself, you know it takes like an hour or two, because you have to put in the link, you have to like come up with the description, and like if you are super hardworking, you might even put the image, and that takes time. And so like with us, you can do it in, I guess, like a minute if you have the links already. So
that's awesome. That's a very cool feature.
Yeah, so people really like that. So yeah, so I guess like it kind of depends on what people are looking for, and then I've like been managing to pull people in just a variety of ways, I guess.
All right, this is going to be a dumb idea, but let me take a crack at this. So one of the things that I'm hearing from you, it sounds like there are a lot of similarities between what you're doing and like gyms and diet type of plans, where it's like, you know, you should be doing this. Everyone knows they should be doing this, but you're not. And yeah, it's interesting because you're so close to this mainstream thing of like email marketing, but no one knows your like kind of specific thing in there exists. So I wonder if you can kind of attach yourself as like, you know, this thing exists, but you're late to the game. You feel behind, like kind of playing off their guilt a little bit. I wonder if you look at a bunch of websites for like diets and gyms, if you can get kind of positioning ideas from them.
That's really cool. I'm writing that down right now.
Nice. This will also be recorded, so you can, no need to write stuff down. But yeah, when I started podcasting, that always messed me. I was always writing stuff down. Like, I don't want to forget this idea. And then I was like, let me go back and listen to this later. Yeah, okay. Because yeah, you said consistency and workflow. I guess that's more the consistency side of it. It's like, yeah, it's a New Year's resolution or whatever. I wonder what those people are like searching for, though. So you're
So
like a
yeah, so
marketing,
those
yeah.
with the consistency people, it's hard, right? So that's just me showing up and then like them discovering that we exist. They're not really
Hmm.
searching for a solution.
Right.
Yeah, which is the hard part.
Have
So
you
like for
ever?
sorry,
Oh yeah, no,
keep
go
going.
ahead.
So like one example or one idea I had to fix this like category problem is to do more forms. Like everyone searches for subscriber forms, right? For their blog.
Hmm.
And so like we could just play up subscriber forms and people can find us that way and then like go down the rabbit hole and be like, oh, like this plugin does so much more than subscriber forms. So that's kind of one angle I was thinking of going down.
So you'd be like, I'm not really super familiar with the world of these forms. So you'd like have a plugin in the WordPress directory or something that's like, we'll do your subscriber forms for you, and then also eat your vegetables and start sending out your newsletters, basically.
Yeah, I guess so, something like that.
That's cool. So that's like engineering as marketing, which I have never gotten to work. Or I haven't tried. I've never had a good idea, but I love the idea of engineering as marketing. You're a marketing professional. Have you ever done like a top of funnel get kind of, I don't want to say unqualified leads, but like leads that are not ready to buy, and then put them on a nurturing campaign and nurture them down to the point where they're ready to buy? Like, have you ever gotten that to work with past projects before?
Uh, Not really. I think like it takes to get all of the pieces in place. I think would probably take 2 to 3 years. And I've just like not had the luxury of doing that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so it's always like start at the bottom of the funnel and then work your way back up, right?
Yeah, that's been my experience too. But I'm so jealous of the people that have, like, it's such a superpower to be able to do that. But I've never gotten it to work
Yeah,
either.
but I mean, like if you look at all the people who do get to do it, like those are the like we've been 10 years in the game and like our game is marketing kind of people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
The
so I
thing
think
is,
it's
I've
like
been in the game for 10 years and I still haven't done it. I don't have any excuses. Okay, so yeah, you said start at the bottom of the funnel, work your way up. This conversation's going all over the place. Is that okay? Like, is this
it's
okay
great.
topic? Okay, cool. Um, okay, so we were talking positioning, consistency, and workflow. It sounds like, are you already like kind of, do you have a presence in the WordPress space? Because it sounds like the thing you've gotten working so far is finding the right persona of person and getting them to follow you for, it sounds like, other reasons. And then just kind of, because your product is so compelling, if they're into WordPress, they're going to want it. Is it possible that like the positioning is, this isn't positioning, I guess, but just being more of an ever present in the WordPress ecosystem and focusing less on what it is that Newsletter Glue actually does?
I feel like that's not sustainable. That's
Yeah,
like
that's true.
marketing via personality or something. It's like only if you're a Steve Jobs friend, like you have to like go into the Steve Jobs universe before you buy an Apple. Like that's just not sustainable, I think. Um,
It's
yeah,
not sustainable if you don't have good product led growth.
right.
But if you do, like, our marketing at Lesley Sim has always been weak, but referrals have been strong. And so
Right.
we'll go spend way too much money on Google AdWords, and we just think of it as like planting a weed, almost planting a seed, and then it, like, the actual payoff is when that expands beyond it. Anyway, I don't disagree with you. Okay. Any other thoughts on this? Or I'm interested in maybe moving on to the specific topics we plan to advance, starting with sales funnel, unless you have any other thoughts on what we were just saying.
No, let's
Works
go.
for you? Okay, cool. So you told me that like one of the challenges is related to the sales funnel, and that specifically it's difficult with WordPress because you're not just some like standalone SaaS product with your own website. A lot of people are used to, like, you're a plugin to WordPress and people are used to buying that in a certain way. Can you kind of explain like what the challenge is there?
Yeah, so with WordPress, okay, let me approach this a different way. With regular SaaS products, everything is done behind the scenes magically by the company. So, like hosting is taken care of. A regular person will never have to think about things like hosting. They never have to think about things like bug fixes. At the most, like something doesn't work, and then they write, a support ticket, and someone magically fixes that for them behind the scenes. They also never have to think about updates and like, should I update? Should I wait for the next update? Things like that. Like maybe you have to do that if you have like an app on your desktop or something. But aside from that, not really. In contrast with WordPress, all of those things are things that a basic consumer has to deal with, and that's kind of like annoying, and in worst cases, traumatizing. Because like you have to figure out your hosting, and like if something is slow, it's going to be your fault. If something is broken, it's your fault. If there are plugin conflicts, that's your fault as well. Like you have to figure all of that out, and it's tough. So like so on top of that, the thing that I'm getting at is the download flow is tough as well. Like the upgrade, download, activation flow is tough. So you can't just like click a button and have it activate. You have to like we send you a zip file of the plugin, and then you have to upload that onto your WordPress site and activate it. And that's like
That's how
not
every plugin in
intuitive.
WordPress works. Like
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow.
ridiculous. Yeah. Um, yeah, so there are ways around it. Like there are some companies who like freemius, they let you uh, they have like an SDK that lets you install, like once you have the free version installed, you can upgrade inside your WordPress without having to go through that zip file thing. But like I think they're the only company that does that. um, and so like everyone else, like myself, like we have to get people like to understand this whole concept, and it's not an easy concept to understand. um, yeah, and so okay, so like that's kind of, I'm like giving you the world. So in our case, in addition to that, we have like a free trial versus free plugin, like so freemium versus free trial thing that I've been like kind of mulling on for a while now. So like with the free, so like in the SaaS world, people regularly talk about how like you shouldn't do freemium until you're a certain size and you can manage like the support load, and you have like excellent documentation, so people don't have to go for support for freemium because you don't actually want to spend too much support hours, on like freeloaders basically. But then you also
Hmm.
want like a million freeloaders using your plugin so that they can tell people who will then in turn purchase it at some point. So that's kind of like the benefit of the freemium model, right? Like a huge size. And like people say that you shouldn't do that when you're just starting out because you can't manage all of that. And so unfortunately in WordPress, because it's open source and because it kind of started out as people doing free stuff for WordPress, so everyone expects you to have a free plugin, and expects to freeload off you. And then like because it's on the WordPress directory, they all support tickets are public. Like they have like a forum where you're supposed to do your support, and they downlist, delist, not delist. You don't get ranked as highly.
Hmm.
Downrank you if your support tickets go unanswered for too long.
Hmm.
And then like then there's like this like vicious cycle also, because uh, sometimes if you don't give good support for these like free customers, they'll then give you like 1 star or something, and then that obviously like affects your rankings as well. And so like now you have to deal with all of these problems, and it's like I just wanted to like have a small business where I can support myself and not have to deal with all of this stuff. um so like having to deal with this like whole freemium free plugin thing is tough. But then on the other side, like it's not that easy to do free trials because of you're giving someone your entire code base every single time they buy your product, right? Because it's
Right.
all in a zip file. So like me, like I can kind of like lock features after 2 weeks, like, but it's a superficial lock because actually they have
Hmm.
all of the features already. So like all of that stuff makes like that whole sales funnel just really tough.
Is it not common to, like, I would think the way around that would be to have all the functionality goes through your servers. So like rather than having them connect to MailChimp's API, they send something to you and you send something to MailChimp's API. Is that not really how it's done in the WordPress world?
It's not how it's traditionally done. I think people are moving towards that more and more. We haven't done that. Yeah, I don't know. It's like intimidating, I think.
Yeah, I imagine it's also tough because with a normal free trial, it's like, okay, you're locked out. You can't log in. Whereas here, it's like you're locked out. Your whole WordPress install's messed up now or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow, I hear so much like superficial stuff about WordPress, but this is the first time I'm hearing like this level of detail. It's fascinating. I guess these are the pros and cons of building on such a large platform, right? That lots of users, lots of established stuff, but you're kind of at the whims of the platform.
Yeah.
So where are you right? Oh yeah, sorry, good.
Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, like, to be fair, it's not really like at the whims of the platform. It's just like, I mean, it's open source, right? So it has to work for millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
And like you're dealing with the fact that it's like insanely flexible and extendable.
Yeah. They're design decisions though. You have to live by.
Yeah.
Where are you now? Like, do you have a free trial? Do you have a free, like a freemium and then a paid plugin?
Yeah, so we have the freemium thing going on right now. So you can go to WordPress.org and activate our plugin and start using that for free. And then we have like a upgrade flow there as well. I think that needs to be improved a bit, but it works for now. Yeah.
Have you considered? So a bit ago, you mentioned that maybe you should like go after this. Did you call it form building, or is that what it's called?
Subscriber forms.
Subscriber
opt-in
forms.
forms. Yep.
I've been toying with this with Less Annoying CRM because we've got I just don't think we can go freemium, partially because we have too much customers. Like CRM is just like a really hard thing from a customer service standpoint, and we'd be cannibalizing our current revenue base, and we need that to pay our employees. But I've been toying with the idea of like a freemium model where it's a different product that's free, and then that's basically lead gen for the main one, which is kind of what you were talking about with the forms.
Yeah.
Have you put thought into like make that free, and that's how all of your leads are generated? I guess that's kind of what that's why you brought it up. Is that more or less what you had in mind there?
I'm not. I guess like that idea would also be subject to this problem. So I don't know if I would just kind of do the freemium route with the forms. But in any case, I think like there'll be way more people just searching for forms in general.
Yeah.
And like our job would just have to be getting on those like top 10 forms in WordPress type lists.
So I don't know if this is true for forms or not, but here's the process I went through is like not all products have equal support burden and stuff like that. So it sounds like one of your concerns with free is the support. So maybe you could pick. So one of the things I've been toying with is we were talking about SavvyCal earlier, basically a appointment scheduler just like that. I know they do not have anywhere near the support burden of a CRM. Like, I think we could do that freemium in a different way. Now, maybe forms isn't it, but what do you think the support load would be for a form tool?
I don't know. I mean, I've never done like hardcore forms before. So like we have a forms block already. So, people can use that if they wanted to. But like the forms that I was thinking about was like, exit intent, modals, like a bar at the top, like like delayed forms, like just kind of like going all out on everything that you could possibly do with forms. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking about. And I don't know, like maybe that's like too complex, and like then like that invites lots of support. So who knows?
Yeah. Where does the data from the form go? Like, does WordPress have kind of a forms get submitted to this database table thing, or would it be like it just goes to ConvertKit or MailChimp or whatever?
So we would do it just goes to ConvertKit or MailChimp. But you could also collect it on WordPress.
I'm totally ignorant here because, like, again, I don't know anything about WordPress. That feels like you could do that with less support because I think you could make it where it's just, here's a JavaScript snippet,
Mm-hmm.
put it at the header of every page. There's no plugin to install necessarily, or like there's nothing to do with the editor of. My impression is like complex plugins are really like getting into the back end admin of
Right.
WordPress,
Yeah.
which you wouldn't
We
need
would
for
want
this.
to, yeah, but we would want to do that just because like that gives the styling options, and that would be what makes us stand out. So like we create a
Mm,
form block inside of WordPress, so you can like like pull up the form block easily in the WordPress editor, and then like do a bunch of like crazy styling stuff rather than just
gotcha.
do a snippet, which is very inflexible.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, whether it's that or not, I would be. I think that's maybe an interesting thing to brainstorm. Is like, is there something that could be offered for free, where the support would be very low, but people need to use it? That's the challenge. Is like WordPress, I assume, is super competitive. I listened to a few podcasts from people in the Shopify ecosystem, and they said this is what happened to that. Is all of the free apps. So like in the early days, all of like everyone was offering free apps or just like little standalone apps, but they couldn't monetize them very well. And so what ended up happening is all of the really expensive paid apps built those same free apps, but they couldn't afford to invest and make them really, really good because it was lead gen for an actual paid thing.
Right.
Have you seen that in the WordPress space at all?
Yeah, I have. Actually, there was, I think a few months ago, there was some controversy. So this bigger company bought over an existing free app because they had a large user base. And then inside the free app, they like added a million more features and like changed the name and everything and like
Hmm.
rebranded so that it be the name of the bigger company. And like all the users of that free app, which was like, I don't know, like a huge base, like 200,000
Yeah.
users or something. They like
Wow.
all freaked out and they're like, what happened? And what are you doing? And yeah. So like this stuff happens
Buying
all
a
the
free
time.
app. That's interesting.
Yeah, and like
Obviously.
I bet you wouldn't even have to pay that much if it was like this random dude who built it 7 years ago and like hates
Mm-hmm.
supporting it and like regrets building it, and he has like the burden of 200,000 people who rely on it, and like that person can't make any money from it, and like yeah, like if someone wants it, take it. Here you go.
Yeah. Do you know if affiliate relationships are common between plugin creators? Like, could you just offer a like commission to anyone that referred you a customer?
Yeah, those are I think one of the main I'd say one of the main like sales channels or marketing
Mm.
channels that people use.
Okay, cool.
Do you guys
So,
do a lot of affiliates?
we have an affiliate program. We have for a long time. I would say it's been so. I've never had a big marketing win ever. Basically, the story of Less Annoying CRM's modest success is uh, most of it's like unattributable growth, which we think is mostly word of mouth. But how can you ever really? I mean, we've tried to figure it out, but it's hard to tell. But we've just got little like surges of like no marketing channel scales and lasts a long time, but we've had little wins here and there. So we'll have like an affiliate who brings us 50 users in a couple months, and we're like, awesome. But then that's their whole audience, and so then
Right.
it stops. But I think across the board, I pay out affiliate commissions, right? I should know this. I pay out about $800 a month in affiliate commissions, and we
Nice.
pay between 10 and 25%. So let's say it averages to 15%. Um, so if I do divided by 0.15, is that the number? So yeah, we're making something like 5,000, 6,000 a month in revenue that came directly from affiliates, if I'm doing my math right, out
Nice.
of 280 or whatever thousand a month. So it's not like a huge percentage, but every little bit counts, I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
I feel like that's kind of been um my realization with marketing as well. So like I used to do marketing, on a large scale for, brands like Subway, for example. I used to do
Mm,
advertising with them and stuff like that. And when you're bootstrapping your own company, everything you know about marketing and advertising is not relevant.
yeah.
Um, yeah, you can't just like spend $1 million in a month on getting awareness. Like that's just not how it works. And so like I realized it's a lot like um, going out with a little boat and a little net and just like, okay, I know that there are these 10 places where fish like to hang out. And then you just have to hit all of those 10 places. And then like the next day you go out again and you're like, okay, we've gone to those 10 places. Let's go to my other like 10 fishing spots. And like, that's pretty much all you can do, I think. And like maybe that changes as you grow. But for now, that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. That's certainly how it's felt for me. It's so fascinating that, because I don't have a marketing background, so I was just like, maybe I'm just bad at marketing, or maybe just it's hard, right? But so at Subway, or I realize you're just using them as an example, but like, are they even attributing all of that like awareness, or are they just like, well, we got it in front of a million eyeballs, that we'll just trust that was worth it?
I think there's definitely like a break in the connection between marketing and sales. So like marketing, especially like, so I was doing like Subway, I don't know, in 2012 or something. So that's a while ago. And like a lot of that was out of home stuff. So what that means is like billboards, bus ads, bus stops, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
train ads. And so like that is like a media buyer would come and tell you if you put your ad on xyz bus stops, this will get you, let's say, 800,000 eyeballs, right?
Hmm.
And so like they count it that way, and then after that they look at sales and they'll be like, okay, this month we got, I don't know, 1% increase of sales or whatever number. And like we know that 50% of that was due to something else. And then like maybe we can kind of attribute that other 50% to these 800,000 eyeballs that we got. So that's kind of how they do it. There's like a definitely, not a perfect attribution link.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it's like, by the time you're spending $1 million a month on marketing or whatever amount, it's really just, how much money can I throw at this problem? Yeah.
What do you think about, like, would that work for a business the size of mine or even the size of yours? Because it sounds like what's worked for you is basically brand awareness, right? It's just like you said earlier, like you need 3 or 5 or 7 touch points, however many, but eventually people hear the message and they're like, oh, this is actually great. We've done this at Less Annoying. We've sponsored podcasts, for example, and we can't measure. I mean, we do the thing where you're like, put in this code or whatever, and no one does it. But maybe it's worth it just for people to have heard our name. Having been in that industry, I mean, do you think there's anything to that, or is it like, no, you need to be this like global brand for that to work?
No, I mean, I think it could work at any size. It's just that then you're spending a lot more money. And so then you have to care about. So, okay, so like MailChimp, one of the things that they happened to stumble into was they sponsored Serial, the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they were lucky because I can't remember who the producers of that show was, but they had sponsored a smaller show by that same team before that. And it was like for peanuts. And then they were like, that team then reapproached MailChimp. And I think I listened to this on Guy Raz or something. But they approached MailChimp and they're like, oh, we're coming up with this new podcast. Do you want to advertise that one on that show as well? And they're like, sure. And then it was like the same rates as the other
Oh wow.
podcasts, which are small. And then like Serial blew up, right? And then that got them in front of millions and millions of mainstream non-tech people.
Yeah.
Um, and that really helped with their brand awareness. So I think like when you talk about stuff at that scale, that those are the kinds of things that you have to think about. You're no longer thinking about like product or like onboarding flows or free trials or conversions. You're just like, if I can get myself in front of 500 million people, that's going to be a win for us. But like,
Yeah.
but the other thing is like you have to think about marketing budgets. So it's no longer, I'm going to spend $1 million in a month. It's like I'm going to spend $1 million every month for the next like 20 years.
But do you think it would work to spend $500 a month on awareness? Like,
No,
obviously, you're not getting anywhere near that penetration, but some people are still seeing or are still hearing your name. But you just don't think it doesn't work that way.
no. Yeah. And especially like, I mean, I don't know this for sure because I'm not a performance marketer, but from what I've been hearing, like the rumblings, like Google and Facebook ads are now way more expensive, and like they don't
Yeah, we
work
stopped doing
unless
them.
you spend like $100,000 a month, or like ideally a day, for it to like really make sense. So like even if you
Hmm.
talk to like people who work at Facebook, on the ads side of things, like that's what they say as well. Like they need to get you to a certain daily spend before like the algorithms start working, like all of that stuff starts working.
Hmm.
Especially now with like the privacy stuff, where like it's even harder for them to get good at targeting. So yeah, you'd have to be like in the $100,000 a day on ad spend kind of realm for it to really make sense.
That's interesting because we used to do a lot of AdWords, not a lot, but we were spending maybe $10,000 a month on AdWords at
Mhm.
our peak. And it was always very expensive. But again, we viewed it as you plant a seed and then, there's all this unattributed growth. Like we saw a pretty strong correlation between spending more on AdWords and getting a bunch of customers we couldn't attribute to anything. Kind of like that's similar to your bus example. But in our case, every time we tried to increase the budget, the performance went down sharply.
Interesting.
And we don't really know why. AdWords is such a black box where like, and also from one month to the next, like our CPC, our cost per click would just like skyrocket and then go way down, and we have no idea why. But yeah,
Did
we
you
were
have a
always
professional performance marketer working on that stuff?
no, we were just. I mean, we've hired one kind of consultancy person to come in and do it. He couldn't get it working either, but mostly we've done it in house. But for years, we could get it working at a $1,000 to $10,000 a month budget. Actually, in the early days of the company, I sold like $15,000 of like I took it out of my IRA, my like retirement account, which is a
That's so
bad idea.
scary.
Don't
Yeah.
do that because you have to like pay all. I don't know what if you have an equivalent to this, but like in the U.S. with an IRA, you have to like pay a penalty on all the money that
Oh
you take
wow.
out because you're not. I'm not old enough yet, but I did it, and we try. Our goal was like spend it all in the first 10 days of the month. So spend like 10 or 15, whatever it was, in 10 days, and it tanked in a way that I like.
Oh.
We got nothing out of it. So we were
Oh.
always just like, well, we can do these really like low volume AdWords campaigns, but we couldn't scale it. Anyway, I don't have a point there, but
Yeah, I don't know anything about performance marketing aside from that.
yeah.
It's super hard, and everyone I know who does it is like that's their entire job and their entire world, and they spend crazy amounts of money doing it. Um, yeah, that's all I know.
I was thinking just the other day that we all want that marketing channel that just like works and it's repeatable and scalable. And you put $1 in the top and you get $2 out of the bottom and then you rinse and repeat. And like any business that had that would in like 6 months become a $10 million plus business, right? Because you could just,
Yeah,
and so it's like almost by definition, indie bootstrap type businesses can't have that, or else you'd be MailChimp, right? Like
yeah,
there are, you can count on one hand the number of bootstrap companies that ever find that marketing channel.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, like even for big companies, it doesn't work that way, right? Because then the billion-dollar companies will just like keep going and become trillion-dollar companies.
Yeah. Yeah, but like you look at Facebook and you're like, okay, they actually have almost every person on earth using it. Like they have a pretty natural cap on their growth, but yeah, you and I don't have that excuse. Anyway, yeah. Okay, well this just went on to random marketing is hard, I think is the theme here.
Yeah. I think
um
I think people have also talked about like the like natural decay of marketing channels. So
yeah.
like, something works for a while, like TikTok's like the new hot thing, and if you get on there early, it's gonna work. And then after that it decays, and then you have to go on and move on to the next thing. So I think there's like that as well that you have to deal with.
Can I like quote you from a different interview you did? I was watching the one I forget what it was. I was watching you on a different interview and you said something that I thought was really interesting. Cause like, I think, attaching yourself to a wave is really
Mm.
good. This applies to marketing channels for sure, but also just generally speak, like attaching yourself to a platform. Like if I were starting a new business right now, I might say like Notion, Webflow, there's a handful of
Yeah.
these. you made the point that WordPress is like the opposite of this. You didn't say it quite this way, but this is how I heard it. Like WordPress is the opposite of this, but you're building on Gutenberg, which is like the new WordPress that all the old WordPress people are resisting, but it's like gradually taking over. I think that's fascinating to like ride a wave of upgrades within a really old, almost outdated ecosystem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, of course you do. I'm quoting you, but
yeah. So first off, thank you for watching whatever weird thing that it was that I did. But yeah, so I think that that's been one of our strategies as well. So Gutenberg it's like the new editor. It's the new it's a new everything, I guess, in WordPress, next generation WordPress, and there's been a lot of resistance, and it's like moved really slowly. I don't I'm not upset about any of that. I think like that's just how it goes for any, if like your adoption rate for WordPress is like massive, right? There's like probably hundreds of millions of websites on that. So to expect everyone to fall in line and like move over like without resistance, that's just unreasonable. And again, like to expect everything to be done in a year or even 2 years, and like here we have this new WordPress now. Like congrats everyone. Like that's also unreasonable. So to be honest, like I feel like a lot of the stuff is both warranted and also like, who cares? That's just the price of change.
yeah.
And so yeah, so like I'm super excited to be on like, I wouldn't say like forefront, but like near the forefront of that change. And it's been cool. And I hope like in 5 years when everyone's on Gutenberg now, and like it's not Gutenberg's not even the name, because like that's just the project name of the thing, and so like everyone's just like now on this new WordPress, and everyone just calls it WordPress. Then like we'd be the established player. So like that's kind of what I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's cool. I wonder if there's other opportunities out there. Like one day Salesforce is going to like do a similar, whole new version and everyone's going to hate it. But being one of the first app developers on that's probably a smart thing to do. All right. We're at an hour here, so probably a good time to wrap up. Thanks for humoring me on that conversation went all over the place. I think we talked about positioning a little, and I don't no real great ideas, but a couple. Yeah, talked about random marketing stuff. Talked about the WordPress sales funnel. So I thought it was really interesting. Thanks for just diving down those rabbit holes with me.
Yeah, thanks for letting me ramble on about all of this stuff. I really like what you said about the whole like diet and gyms thing. I'm gonna go research that a bit and see where that takes me. So
cool,
thanks for that.
Cool. Yeah, let me know if anything comes of that. Where can people find you if they want to learn more?
I'm on Twitter at Lesley LESLEY_pizza, or newsletterglue.com. Yeah, and we're our Twitter for Newsletter Glue is @Newsletter Glue, so you can find us there as well.
I've one last thing before we end. You got to explain the pizza thing, because you're Lesley Pizza. You have a newsletter that I love called Enough.pizza. What's the pizza thing?
It's a much more boring story than it sounds. So it's just that the TLD pizza like is super underused, and so I can get like my name, like I have my website is Lesley.pizza as well. And yeah, so like once I realized that the pizza TLD existed, I was like, I'm gonna use this for everything, and it can kind of be like my personal branding. And yeah,
that's so funny. Yeah, I've never seen it used anywhere else. So you dominate that TLD. Well done. All right, cool. Well, good talking to you, and I'll get this live, and we'll see if anyone likes it.
Thanks,
All
Tyler.
right. See ya.